Rainn Wilson went on Fox News and said the show that made him famous could never get made today. Ain't that the truth? And woke Hollywood treated Rainn Wilson like a traitor and slipped into a familiar meltdown. So the cancel culture deniers got destroyed when Rainn Wilson, of all people, admitted the censors went too far. The blue check class panicked in massive panic mode because Rainn Wilson was supposed to be one of theirs. And their pushback backfired in a hilarious way, and Rainn Wilson trended all day. So Rainn Wilson made the comment on Capitol Hill where he was supposed to promote a bipartisan letter about easing political division, and lawmakers from both parties stood beside him and stuff, and he raised the point about comedy and stuff. But in this interview with Fox News and everything, he does raise a good point and stuff, something that a lot of us have already known and all of that. So yeah, here's what was actually said.
I feel like there was a period of time when it was really hard to kind of joke about anything, and that's kind of shifted back now a little bit. And I do feel like you couldn't make The Office today. I think that would be too hard to be as politically incorrect as the show was, and I do kind of miss that. But you know, I'm not really in the comedy world. I'm just an actor. I'm not really in the stand-up world. And you know, I don't really, there was a lot of outcry from comedians saying, oh, we can't tell jokes anymore. And it's like, I think you can, you just have to make them a little smarter.
I don't know, because it's like, you can't really say things like, that's what she said. I mean, you couldn't say that like a while back and stuff, but now you can get away with that. But if it was made today, like while, you know, Trump or someone like Trump was still in office and stuff, then yes, that can be made. But I mean, it may, you know, not be on broadcast television, but it may be on streaming apps like Netflix or perhaps even Peacock or anything.
Episode from season 1, you know, about race, Diversity Day. The whole point of The Office is that Michael Scott is a boob and completely lacks self-awareness and is going to just say whatever comes to the top of his head without thinking about his own station or what anyone else feels. And Dwight is right there with him. So we milked that for a lot of great, really inappropriate stuff. But even with the fact that painting that character as just an idiot, I don't think you could get away with it today. I don't think there's been very many good comedies that have come out in the last 10 or 15 years, and I wish we could find a way to make good comedy again. Has there traditionally been a bias in the media? Yeah, I think there has been a bias in the media.
He admits it.
Towards more what we call liberal policies. But at the same time, there's hypocrisies on both sides. Plattner from Maine has his tattoo. They say it's a Nazi tattoo. The political right is all up in arms about it. That, oh, he's a racist, see. But they won't look at their own side when people show racist tendencies or say racist things.
I wish you could give an example of that kind of stuff right there. I mean, on the left side, you can give like a lot of examples about that. But at the same time, I mean, he gave examples of that on the left, but he wouldn't bring that up for those who are on the right.
And it's the same on the left. They're willing to overlook the Plattner Nazi tattoo, but if it was someone from the other side that had a tattoo that was questionable, they would be all over MSNBC about it. So it's the hypocrisy that gets me the most. It's the hypocrisy of like, both sides need to have kind of equal standards of behavior. You can't get only outraged at the sexual proclivities of people in the other party. The partisan divide and toxic partisanship and corruption in partisanship is something that the American people are very passionate about. So this isn't some kind of like, oh, that might be a good idea, like let's sing Kumbaya and hold hands. This is like, the people want this fixed. There is an outcry from people. They want it fixed. So if the politicians are smart, they're going to listen to the people on this.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause right here for a little bit and I'll continue with the afterwards. But he said The Office would be too politically incorrect to produce today. The show remains one of the most, rewatched sitcoms in American television. Okay, so a whole generation falls asleep to it every night. The man who played Dwight Schrute called it unmakeable in the current climate. Okay, that part he's right about. And Wilson also called out partisan hypocrisy directly, where he said the right rages about scandals on the left and ignores his own. He said the left does the same thing in reverse. He also pointed out to a current political example to make a point, but the reaction came down to who said it. You see, if a conservative actor saying this would have just passed without, notice, but Wilson reads as a man on, the woke left, and that made the comment land. So his own side treated the honesty as betrayal, and the critics also answered with the Peacock sequel, the Paper, where they argued that a new Office spinoff proves comedy is fine, and that spinoff is tamer and more careful than the original. So it's also caution is the point Wilson was making, but the deflection is a standard move where defenders point to whatever survived the squeeze and call it freedom, bold, equal opportunity comedy, which really gets greenlit now. And the people who would know keep saying so, okay?
And to a certain subset of both sides, kind of vitriol and outrage is going to play really well. 92% of Americans believe in God or a higher power, and 85% have some kind of spiritual practice. There's not any topic that has more commonality and mutuality than spiritual ideas.
That brings me back to my next point, where Rainn Wilson makes, basically an effective messenger precisely because he sits outside politics. Okay. And Rainn Wilson spent his, public life after the office on like interfaith work and mental health advocacy and stuff. And along with that kind of stuff, Rainn Wilson has a long career to lose and nothing political to gain. Okay. But the critics can't file Rainn Wilson under right-wing grifter. I mean, that's exactly why Rainn Wilson rattled them, okay? Because Rainn Wilson, simply put, understands why cancel culture failed and why it shows that, there's bigger fish to fry, basically.
But we've been kind of flummoxed into a corner of saying like, oh, these secular leftists are godless communists, and these right-wingers are Christian nationalists, and so the ideas around spirituality have kind of been weaponized in terms of the national discussion. But actually, the two sides have more in common than you would think.
Okay, so in response to us, like spirituality, things and stuff. Why stop at spirituality? Why not go on to, biblical sound? What's biblically sound? What's actually biblical and stuff, Because, I mean, it's like when you actually see things from a biblical standpoint, you're going to see the reality of both sides of that which is on the right and even on the left, okay? Now, let's be real here. The Office worked by laughing at everyone, just to get back to the topic. And the jokes themselves, simply put, I mean, the jokes landed on ego and human weakness. A culture that protects some groups from any joke can't produce that kind of show. And comedy like that needs everyone to be fair game. Same way it was with Scary Movie 6, same way it is with, South Park, okay? And the coverage of Rainn Wilson divided long, predictable lines where outlets that defended cancel culture either ignored Rainn Wilson or called him out of touch. And outlets that have, warned about this ran Rainn Wilson as proof that they were right, but the reaction to Rainn Wilson mapped the exact divide that he actually described. Okay, so Rainn Wilson became the test case for his own argument, and Wilson actually took a real risk on camera where he criticized his own side, knowing the blowback would come. That kind of candor is rare in this kind of industry, but guess what? He said it anyway. And the episode undercuts a long-running claim for years that, that the line that was that cancel culture did not exist. A working, well-liked left-leaning actor just described it from the inside, and the denial gets harder to sustain after that. So, yeah, moments like this carry weight because, well, they come from outside politics. Wilson said something plainly true while promoting a unity letter. So he had no campaign to run and no points to score either. All right, so let's keep it a bean. But people heard it as sincere, and the people mocking Rainn Wilson ended up proving his point. You see, Rainn Wilson looked like, an honest man saying something obvious, but every reply swearing comedy is free, and that Rainn Wilson came from people doing the policing he described, and they cast themselves in the exact role Rainn Wilson named, and Rainn Wilson walked away with the stronger hand. Okay, so basically Rainn Wilson said out loud that what plenty of people in this country believe quietly. So the crowd that calls cancel culture a myth spent the day proving Rainn Wilson right. And even Rainn Wilson took the risk anyway and let the reaction speak for itself. And so, yeah, basically more moments like this with Rainn Wilson may come up and stuff. And if you want to, if you have any thoughts on this Rainn Wilson interview, go ahead and tell me in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that bell notification. I'll see you on the next one.